محمد حكالنا عنها واحنا صغيرين خدت اهتمامنا كنا في
Since 1973, the 6th of October is such a day, a very special day for all Egyptians. This is the real sense of pride, of patriotism, of loyalty. This is where the Egyptians knew well that they can achieve a lot, they can do miracles. And they destroyed the so-called phenomenal Israeli army. We regained our land, we regained Sinai. Every single centimeter is ours once again. Well, every single year we do discover more heroic deeds by our men. And today we are going to continue doing that. We are very much delighted to have with us live here in the studio our prominent guest, General Ali Hefzi, former Assistant Defense Minister and former Governor of North Sinai. نشكر حضرتك يا فندم لوجودك معنا على شاشة قناة النيل الدولية.
and happy returns to you. You are welcome. Happy returns to you and all viewers and Egypt. Good morning, Mr. General. Happy returns to you. Let's start with the preparation for the war. Some people say that the declaration of the war was sudden, but when did the planning start? When late President Abdel Nasser wanted to step down for the fall that happened in the 5th of June 1967, the Egyptian people didn't accept his decision to step down, and they said, you will have to continue with us, and the land taken from us and the dignity we lost in the aggression of June 1967, we will have to regain the land and the dignity once again. This was the beginning and the entrance. Now we have the target for all Egypt. All people were united, including the army and the people. They decided and insisted to regain their dignity. They believed that what has been taken by force has to be regained by force too. This was the start of the successive battles which led us to the greater epic of October 1973, when we mention that date, we all feel pride, dignity, honor. We feel admiration of the Egyptian army and how the Egyptians turned what is impossible into possible. How we turned from defeat into victory. This has been done through a collection of battles. I can mention briefly the battle after the 5th of June. They said that Egypt is a dead body and Egypt will not revive until after 20 or 30 years. This was said by our enemies. They used to put Egypt into troubles. Our generation, the generation of October, have succeeded to cross through the battles, and your generation has the same target. But now we have different tools and techniques to achieve the epic of October, we have the battle of reconstructing the Egyptian army. Throughout 3 or 4 years, we have the stage of the war of attrition that lasted for more than 1,000 years, which made our enemy fear us and delivered a message that you will have to pay dearly for occupying our lands. During the war of attrition, there had been more than 4,000 military operations. I can mention one example for the time limit. The naval special forces reached Eilat for 3 times throughout 6 months, and they destroyed targets inside the port itself. We managed to monitor all the operations of the Israeli forces. We have a group we have Group 39 group led by hero Ibrahim Rifai. Honestly speaking, I say that we know very little about the operations, the heroic operations of the Egyptian army. I can say that this was an epic. The war of attrition was the first war in which the Israeli forces were defeated, and this was recognized by late Israeli President Ezra Weizmann. Through that epic, Israel began to hurry to the USA to give them more armament, and here we have the Ruger initiative to cease fire, and we have the battle of the Egyptian air defense, who managed to break the strong arm of the Israeli aviation. Let's stop at the war of attrition, which has been always mentioned by late President Anwar Sadat as the most honorable war. One of its most important elements is that there was no distinction between an officer and a soldier. We were all soldiers of the Egyptian army, and there was no distinction between different individuals. Whatever their ranks are, they were all soldiers. Let's stop at the war of attrition stage to have a detailed talk. We will have 2 minutes for the war of attrition.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are still with you in this very special edition of the Breakfast Show, celebrating the glorious October victory. Today marks the 46th anniversary of the October victory, and we are talking about the glory of this war, things that we need to remind ourselves and remind our children and the younger generations of the heroic deeds of the Egyptian army. لواء أركان حرب علي حفظي كنا بنتكلم على
we were talking about the attrition war and how it paved the way for the October War 1973. I say that the attrition war has proved for the Egyptian fighter that that lie that the Israeli soldier cannot be defeated is just an illusion. I attended one of the situations when we have the clashes with the Israeli arms. That was I was an eyewitness. The Israeli troops didn't support each other. They used to fight separately and escape. I would say that the attrition war gave confidence to the Egyptian fighters and allowed us to see the materials and the armament of the Israeli troops. And it gave us ideas how to make the best use of our capacities. This is very important. Our viewers have to know that the two superpowers at the time, USSR and USA, didn't want Egypt to fight and regain the land. The two presidents, late President Nasser and late President Sadat, had asked the USSR to have offensive operations and attacks which are different from defensive operations. When we ask for offensive weapons, our demands were refused, and until we started war we didn't have offensive weapons, which this have urged the other side to be convinced that Egypt cannot launch a war. So the attrition war was led to direct contacts and great losses on the part of the enemy, and this made the Egyptian soldiers in high spirits and paved the way for the October victory. I moved to the great role played by the Egyptian air defense soldiers and the rocket wall, and this was the first air defense system to be used in that way. So many armies asked to get the experience of the Egyptian air defense that managed to break the arm of the Israeli air force. We have a ceasefire at the according to Roger initiative in August 1970, and after that until the 6th of October 1973 we had the battle of the Egyptian mentality and intelligence, and how the Egyptian intelligence and smartness enjoying a strategic view with political media and the social perspectives, and preserving the secrets of the future views. I can give you a piece of information that it's easy to get information, but it's difficult to discover the intentions. This is very difficult. When the decision was taken, that decision was taken after President Sadat came to power in October 1970. In 1971, in October, it was clear that Henry Kissinger, the U.S. advisor of security, national security, they felt that the Egyptians are preparing for something, and they wanted to discover our intentions. They were convinced that we don't have potentials, but they had direct contacts and indirect contacts. In October 1972, the Supreme Council for the Armed Forces, led by late President Sadat, took the decision of war. The decision was taken in October 1972, and Field Marshal Ahmed Ismail was nominated as Minister of Defense. The system of that mental battle has managed to deceive the all intelligence bodies of the world, including the American and the Israeli ones. until day October 5th, 1973, there was no intelligence report mentioning that Egypt can have a move on the 6th of October. It was a great epic, and if we wanted to talk about it, the system of the 6th of October 1973, this is a great epic. I had the honor that I was selected by the state. I was working at the office of the military attaché in USA, and USA asked for one of the commanders of October to give a lecture about October War at the home of the American military office, a well-known academy in the USA. I gave the lecture, and I was surprised that it was not in a hall. I found out that the lecture was given in a large theater with 2,000 or 3,000 attendees. I cannot forget those moments. They were astonished by the great performance of the Egyptian fighters in October 1973 war. They were astonished because they knew well our potentials, which through which we cannot do. You know, Sukhoi versus Phantom, as you mentioned. The aircraft duration is 40 minutes. But our engineers modified our aircrafts, but there was no comparison between the aircrafts of the Israeli and the Egyptian armies. And this is one example. I was surprised that they were astonished. Instead of giving the lecture in 1 hour, I stayed for 3 or 4 hours trying to understand the greatness of the Egyptian fighter. Let me ask you that the Israelis recognized what you have said. One of the important books, Mehdal, which means explained what happened in October. The new generation in Egypt criticized celebrating the memory of October, which took place 46 years ago. We wanted to deliver a message to the new generation about the greatness of that victory, which we have to mention for hundreds of years, for the whole history. I need some points which we can mention to the new generation how October 1973 was a real epic. The entrance to your, in answering to your question, I can say that it's generations crossing. We should understand that Egypt is targeted by our enemies, and you have to read the history well. We have to ask ourselves how many one of you that Egypt lasted for 2,500 ruled by non-Egyptians. When we remember, this is very important, 2 points to be delivered to the new generations. I would like to say that be careful. Sinai was captured in 6 days, but we regained it in 6 hours. That was Bar-Leaf line. But to regain Sinai, I have an important message. We spent 22 years. The 6 years were the military conflict. The military conflict lasted for 6 years. I wanted to deliver a message to your generation. The generation of your fathers and grandfathers stayed for 22 years insisting to recapture and regain Sinai completely. That conflict included was a political one and a military one, and this has to be mentioned. As the Egyptian fighter managed to attain victory, we have also to mention the role of the Egyptian politicians who helped carry out the negotiations which lasted for years to regain Sinai and finally Taba. So from the 5th of June to March 1989, the generation of October has been insisting to regain Sinai fully. When we talk about that epic, we have a certain objective. We feed ourselves, we refresh our minds, we renew our self-confidence. We say that it was impossible, but your fathers have managed to turn what's impossible to possible. What's important, you have to consider that greatness that made our enemies call that epic as miraculousness, achievement, and novelty.
الإعجاز والإنجاز والبراعة مفيش أجمل من كده ننهي.
This is very good words to end our talk. It was an honor to have you on Nile TV, and we hope to repeat that meetings again. Thank you for that meeting, which I consider as a sign of loyalty and respect to our generation from your generation, and I have confidence that your generation, I am confident that we have a new generation which have the elements that can help us feel that Egypt is safe, with a new generation that can have new achievements. General Ali Hefzi, we hope to have more tales about the heroic deeds of October, but unfortunately our time is over. We thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, and happy returns.
On the occasion of the 6th of October victory, we have a special feature on the development of the Egyptian army. Let's watch and we'll be right back.
The Egyptian army is the most ancient army known to mankind. The army was the first